Episode 1: Whispers Before the Fire. Prologue. Long ago the sky fell, not in fire, not in thunder, but with silence. The obelisk did not crash, it arrived, a towering shard from the void, humming with ancient resonance, threading its way into the fabric of the world like a needle through skin. No explosion, no quake. Just a low, inescapable hum that seeped into stone, root, and soul alike. And Elaria changed. What was once a balanced world of breath, earth, and seasons became something far more dangerous. Flow, the invisible river of magic once whispered through by sages and poets, now roars. It floods the skies, drowns the land, and saturates the hearts of every living thing. Some call it a blessing. Most call it a wound. To the east, forests bloom with plants that speak in dreams. To the north, ice sings songs that freeze the blood. And at the center of it all, the obelisk looms, silent, watching, as if waiting for something. Or someone. Only a quarter of the world remains stable. The rest has twisted, fragmented into zones of warped time, unstable gravity, and monstrous birth. The last safe regions cling to existence behind a fragile magical shield known as the Veil. Here, the 5 great families hold what remains of civilization. Fireheart, Frostwind, Venomtide, Stormshadow, Nightshade. Each commands the power of their elemental bloodlines. Each guards their legacy with blades, rituals, and silence. But even they fear what the obelisk stirs. Whispers have returned. Children are born marked, their aura flickering like candlelight caught in a storm. Some hear voices in their sleep. Some lose time. Some wake up, changed. The old ones call them oblique-born. The bold call them cursed. But all agree on one thing. These children are not accidents. They are omens. Tonight, beneath the volcanic skies of the Emberlands of the Fireheart, 2 boys prepare to race across sacred stone. One is born of dragons, Firecrest pulsing beneath his skin. The other, born of the obelisk, yet watched by the wind. Their footsteps will stir the dust of forgotten wars. Their breath will disturb the flow. And as the winds quiet and the fire stills, one of them will hear it. That sound. The first sound. Not thunder, not flame. The whisper. And with it, the first crack in everything that was once whole. At dawn's first light, the first blow wasn't a warning. It was war. A guttural roar cracked through the volcanic air, followed by the explosive boom of a body colliding with stone. Jin flew backward, ribs screaming, vision blurring. His back hit the training ground like a broken doll, dust curling around him like a predator ready for a second strike. He gasped, choking on the air Kaido had knocked out of him. And Kaido laughed. He always laughed. A booming, unrestrained sound that echoed the fire he wielded, a stark contrast to the quiet tension that always seemed to hum around Jin. Even now, as flames surged to life around his fists, the smile never left his face. To him, this was a game, but to Jin, it weighs everything. The future of his stolen past, the weight of an unspoken promise, the burning need to prove himself in a world that saw him as an outsider. Every muscle in his body screamed, every fiber of his spirit burned. This wasn't just training, this was survival, a ritual of will beneath the eyes of Heinz, their ever-watchful mentor. In the heart of the Fireheart estate, where lava pulsed beneath the surface and the wind smelled of sulfur and jasmine, 2 boys carved their legacies in fire and breath. One, a blazing comet, destined to burn bright. The other, a whispered breeze, waiting for its moment to become a storm. Kaido didn't wait. He came again, fast, his footsteps a rhythmic thunder, his fists cloaked in crackling flame. Jin barely had time to move. He felt the familiar surge of panic, the frantic scrambling for an opening that Kaido exploited with ruthless precision. "Jin!" Heinz's voice cut through the roar like flint against steel. "Don't let Kaido's intent mask yours." Heinz's words weren't just a command. They were a subtle nudge toward the flow, the very essence Jin was only beginning to truly grasp. Jin's eyes snapped open, and in that heartbeat, something shifted. Not just in his stance, but in the very air around him. A subtle, almost imperceptible tremor, like the first whisper of a coming gale. He stopped trying to see Kaido. Instead, he felt the flow, let it move through him, not as a weapon, but as an extension of thought. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, tuning out the roar, the heat, the laughter. He felt the subtle currents of air, the shifting dust, the faint scent of rain carried on the wind, a wind only he truly perceived. Wind, he became it. Jin moved like a shadow fleeing light. He ducked beneath Kaido's flaming punch, twisted his torso, and slammed an elbow into Kaido's jaw. A satisfying crack followed, a sound like dry kindling snapping underfoot. Kaido stumbled, just for a second. The laughter died on his lips, replaced by a flicker of genuine surprise in his ember eyes. Then, he grinned. Amusement lit his features as he dropped low and sprang again. The fire in him loved the push, the unexpected challenge. He thrived in the tension, in the raw exchange of power. They collided like storm and flame. A shot to the face, a blast to the ribs. Jin ducked, swept Kaido's leg, but Kaido danced above it, landing with a predator's grace that spoke of countless battles, both real and imagined. They leapt back, winded. Caught in a moment of silence, two forces ready to clash again, the air around them still crackling with residual energy. Jin had landed more blows. His technique was precise, his movements economical. But Kaido had taken less damage. His raw power, his sheer resilience, was a shield and a hammer all at once. Even now, his pressure filled the yard like rising heat from a forge, an oppressive weight that made the very air thick. Jin felt his own flow struggling to breathe beneath it, like a small spark fighting against a suffocating blanket. Then, clap. Heinz's hand snapped through the air like thunder. The fight stopped cold, the sudden silence heavier than the earlier clash. "You're both getting stronger," Heinz said, his voice calm now, but edged with a knowing expectation that hinted at deeper meanings. "Kaido, your intent is obvious, overwhelming. You fill every space with pressure. You leave nothing for anyone else. Like a wildfire, you consume all in your path." Kaido smirked, a flash of arrogance that belied a deeper understanding of Heinz's words. He knew his power. He reveled in it. "And Jin," Heinz continued, looking toward him, his gaze holding a subtle weight, "your flow is precise, refined, but intent. It's not about control. It's about presence. You'll never overcome Kaido unless you learn to let the wind strike back. Not just evade, but assert." The words hung in the air, a challenge and a prophecy. He turned. "Now, I have my own preparations. Ceremonies tomorrow. Try not to kill each other before dawn." As Heinz walked away, a faint shimmer of concern crossed his face, a fleeting shadow that Jin almost missed. As Heinz walked away, the oppressive heat in the yard faded, replaced by a whisper of breeze, cool and light. Jin looked toward the mountains, the towering peaks that guarded the Fireheart estate, feeling an inexplicable pull, a sense of something ancient stirring within their depths. And he climbed. Not just for solitude, but for answers only the wind seemed to hold. Later, high above the estate, Jin sat perched on a weathered stone ridge. Up here, he could hear the silence, profound and vast, broken only by the sigh of the air currents. The wind wasn't just air, it was something else, something living. It curled around him like an old friend, a silent confidant, whispering in a language only he understood, a language of subtle shifts, unseen currents, and ancient memories. He felt a deep, almost primal connection to it, a resonance that went beyond mere affinity. And that's when they came. The Wind Whiskers. Feline spirits made of shimmer and flow, they danced around him like dandelion seeds in a storm, their translucent forms barely visible against the twilight sky. Most people never saw them. They were creatures of pure essence, intangible and elusive. They avoided heat, avoided humans, especially the fiery inhabitants of the estate. But with Jin, they resonated, drawn by the quiet harmony of his presence. They felt it too. The subtle tremor in the mountain, the rising pulse of something ancient and powerful. Something in the mountain had shifted. A presence, not just a faint echo, but a burgeoning force, like a sleeping giant slowly beginning to stir. Suddenly, a branch snapped below, sharp and loud in the pristine silence. The Wind Whiskers shrieked, a high, panicked keening that vibrated through Jin's very bones. Their forms scattered like dust, vanishing into the air, their fear palpable even in their ethereal state. Jin's heart dropped, a cold dread seeping into him. He knew that kind of fear, that primal flight response. And then came the heat, a palpable wave of it, like stepping into the blast furnace of a forge. Kaido. His arrival rolled through the ridge like thunder, pressing the wind down against the stone, forcing even the subtle currents to bend to his will. Obsidian skin. Dreadlocks streaked with ember red, like molten veins. Even standing still, Kaido radiated heat like an unsheathed blade, an aura of raw power that seemed to warp the air around him. The spirits never stayed when he was near. His presence was too strong, too consuming, too inherently fire. "You always talking to the wind," Kaido said, smirking, a teasing edge to his voice. Or did they just sense real power arriving? He surveyed the empty air where the Wind Whiskers had been, a glint of amusement in his eyes, oblivious to their distress. Jin didn't look at him. He felt a prickle of annoyance, not just at Kaido's ego, but at his unconscious disregard for the delicate balance of the world. "They ran because you crashed through nature like a rhino." Kaido just laughed, a deep, rumbling sound, and flicked a stone into the canyon, watching it tumble with an almost childlike fascination. And then, casually, as if delivering a minor inconvenience, "Rorik's back." The wind chimes that Jin had unconsciously woven into the ancient branches above them trembled, a discordant, mournful sound, as if echoing a deeper tremor within the earth itself. Jin's breath hitched. A cold knot tightened in his stomach, far colder than the mountain air. Rorik. The name was a key, unlocking a Pandora's box of memories, both revered and feared. The man who pulled Jin out of the ashes after the Great Tremor, when the earth itself had turned against them. Who raised them both, forging two unlikely brothers from fire and loss. Who fought back the corruption with fire and fury when others ran, his legend woven into the very stones of the estate. His return only meant one thing: the mounting pressure. The whispers of ancient power were about to reach their zenith. The ceremony of embers was tomorrow. The culmination of everything, the forging of destiny. "Race you down," Kaido grinned, his earlier nonchalance gone, replaced by a competitive glint in his eye. He was already moving before the words fully left his mouth, a streak of raw power. And then, he was gone, a blur of red and black. Kaido burst into motion, a streak of fire crashing through the trees, each step a declaration of intent. Jin followed, lighter, faster, skipping between gaps like a gust of wind, his movements a fluid dance compared to Kaido's explosive power. Kaido leapt off a tree, boots blazing, molten embers spitting from his soles. He soared through the air with fire burning from his soles, an impossible feat that defied gravity itself. Jin's eyes widened, a flicker of awe and a sharp pang of envy. When did he learn that? The question burned in Jin's mind, a fresh reminder of the gap between their powers, a gap that seemed to widen with every passing day. Jin gritted his teeth, pressing harder, urging the wind to greater speeds. The wind lifted him, carried him forward, a silent, powerful ally, and for a moment, he was ahead, a fleeting victory. But Kaido landed hard, tumbling through the ancient archway at the base of the mountain, laughing, his voice echoing with triumphant exhilaration. Jin hit just behind, panting, the cold mountain air burning in his lungs. "You gotta train more," Kaido grinned, still catching his breath, a flash of white teeth in the dim light. "You gotta beat me more than once," Jin fired back, a spark of his own defiance. Through the smoke, standing beside the looming silhouette of the mountain archway, stood Rorik. His armor was streaked in obsidian and gold, not decorative, but scarred and worn, a testament to countless battles. He didn't wear it for show, he wore it for survival. Beside him, Heinz stood quietly, holding something, a small ember pulsing with an internal light, a silent, living heart in his cupped hands. Rorik nodded, his gaze sweeping over them, assessing. Not as clean as the last, but the wards held. His voice was deep, resonant, like stones grinding together, carrying the weight of centuries. Kaido stepped forward, his usual bravado tempered by a rare hint of apprehension. Was it bad? Rorik's gaze turned far away, fixed on some unseen horizon, his eyes holding the ghosts of battles yet to come. "You'll understand soon enough," he said, his voice a low rumble, a promise, and a warning rolled into one. The unspoken implication hung heavy in the air. "The world is darker than you know." Then to Jin, he said something softer, a rare moment of tenderness in his hardened demeanor. "You too show promise. One day, both of you will have to protect the ones you love. This place won't defend itself." His eyes held a flicker of something ancient, something sorrowful, as if he foresaw a future burdened by impossible choices. He turned to Heinz. "Go to your mother. She has gifts, and the flame doesn't wait for the unready." The urgency in his voice was undeniable, a subtle shift in the atmosphere around them. Heinz nodded, securing the pulsing ember carefully. Rorik afterwards walking back into the palace, waving his hand, stating he needed to meet with the council. Heinz asked Jin and Kaido, "You'll both be at the altar, right?" "First light." His voice was steady, but Jin caught the faint tremor in his hands. Kaido tilted his head, a rare flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "Yeah, so, what's it like? The ceremony?" His usual bravado seemed to wane, replaced by a genuine question that hinted at an underlying apprehension. They walked through the city-filled vendors, blacksmiths and warriors practicing their stances. Then they got to the ceremony grounds. Kaido's eyes widened with amazement. They walked toward the basalt altar, ancient and warm, pulsing with a faint, almost imperceptible heat. It was a place of power, a nexus where worlds seemed to touch. Heinz reached out, placing his hand on the black stone. The altar pulsed, red and slow, like a sleeping heart beating with a rhythm as old as the mountains themselves. Jin felt a resonance, a faint hum deep in his bones, as if the stone itself was awakening. "The flame calls forth resonance," Heinz said, his voice hushed as if speaking of sacred truths. "Those who pass shape the fate of Elaria itself." He didn't elaborate, but the weight of his words settled heavily on them. Jin felt the pressure tighten in his chest, a mix of fear and a desperate longing for acceptance. "And if it doesn't choose you?" Heinz's voice dropped to a whisper, cold as the mountain air. "Then it chooses another, or consumes all." The words hung in the air, a chilling prophecy, and Jin felt a profound sense of unease, a premonition of something terrible. Kaido stepped forward, his usual confidence returning, a defiant glint in his eyes. "It won't have a choice. It'll choose me." His voice was a statement of fact, an unshakable belief in his own destiny. Hines stared at him for a moment, his gaze unwavering, a silent warning in his eyes. Power means nothing without intent. Flow without purpose burns itself to ash. But without both, you become nothing. His words were a direct challenge, a revelation of the deeper truths of their world. And that's when the vision hit. Jin gasped, a sharp, choked sound. The world around him blurred, fragmented, dissolving into a maelstrom of blinding light and distorted sound. The altar exploded in light, red and blinding, searing his very soul. A chorus of chanting voices, once sacred, turned sharp, monstrous, a discordant wail that pierced his ears. The mountain screamed, a primal roar of agony and fury, its very essence twisting into something unrecognizable. And Jin saw Kaido, kneeling, screaming, his body transforming, twisting, not with the radiant power of the Fireheart, but with something darker, something ancient and malevolent. Tendrils of black flame erupted from the earth, not the vibrant orange of his usual fire, but a desolate, consuming darkness. The sky cracked open above him, not with shadow, but light. Blinding, consuming. A light that tore rather than illuminated. A light that was not holy. He couldn't breathe, the air thick with the stench of ozone and ash, the weight of the vision crushing him. Jin! Hines' voice, sharp and urgent, yanked him back, pulling him from the precipice of madness. Jin blinked. The vision dissipated like smoke, leaving him disoriented and trembling. Kaido stood there, calm, his hand on his shoulder, a look of genuine concern in his eyes. "You're worried about the ceremony," Kaido said, his voice lower now, almost gentle, a rare display of vulnerability. "Don't be. The flame will choose you. Even if you're not born of Fireheart, you're one of us." His words were meant to comfort, but they carried a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor of uncertainty, a hidden fear Jin hadn't seen before. Jin nodded slowly, trying to compose himself, but his heart whispered a different fear, a colder, more insidious dread. What if the flame didn't choose him? What if it chose something darker for Kaido? Something that would consume him rather than empower him? And that's when the mountain stirred. Mount Cinder didn't rumble. It exhaled. A low, deep breath, like a sleeping dragon awakening from a millennium of slumber, and Jin felt it in his very bones. A pulse of ancient pressure rolled over the earth, powerful enough to distort the air, and the wind whiskers Jin had seen earlier, drawn by the disturbance, dove, spiraling to the ground, wings folding, their shimmering forms vibrating with fear. Hines turned, his face pale, his eyes wide with a dawning horror. The altar glowed again, deep and red, but this time the pulsing was faster, more insistent, like a frantic heartbeat. The chanting, faint earlier, became a frantic wail, echoing from deep within the earth itself. Jin looked at Kaido, his stomach churning with a cold dread. His hand was on his chest, not in pain, but clutching, as if trying to contain something restless and terrifying within. But afraid. Jin saw it then, a fleeting glimpse of raw, unadulterated fear in Kaido's eyes, a fear that mirrored his own. The flame wasn't just stirring, it was watching. And it was almost awake.